All right, welcome back, Honors Art 3. You guys should have just finished up your new perspective project. Make sure to turn that in because now we are starting an entirely new project where we're going to explore traditional art, but also non-traditional art. And the question I have up here on the slide is, what is traditional art? And I'm going to go ahead and click through and explain. Now, traditional art is pretty much what it sounds like, where you're using traditional art materials such as pencil and paper and paint on canvas, or like throwing pottery on a potter's wheel. Those are traditional art mediums. Traditional art can also be considered traditional art subject matters or methods. So in Art 1, everything that we talked about was pretty much traditional, especially when it comes to, for example, when we were shading the sphere, when I was walking through, or when you learned to shade the sphere, you learned pretty much all of the traditional practices in order to shade. So just know there's traditional mediums, and then there's also traditional methods as well. So for instance, I have a lot of different traditional pieces here. So back in the day, a lot of sculptures were considered traditional. Same thing with pottery. And as you guys know, painting is a traditional media. And then also printmaking. So this picture here is a picture of the woodblock print of Hokusai's The Great Wave. And this is the artwork itself. You should be familiar with this one. So what I have here is painting, drawing, sculpture, printmaking, and other methods fall into this category. They serve as a foundation for artists to build on, as well as contribute to a shared grasp of what constitutes art. Now, what would make an artwork non-traditional? And I'm going to show you guys a plethora of examples, and I'm going to go into some, and then some I'm going to kind of breeze over. This first one here is actually painting, which is a traditional material, but you, or actually my professor in this case, was painting on a non-traditional surface. This is a artwork or artworks from my painting professor in college, and he is painting ears on soup cans. Can you guys guess why he would be painting ears on soup cans? Give you a second to think about it. And 3, 2, 1. He's reflecting on nostalgia here. So back in the day, I don't know if you ever did this, but that was just a fun method to communicate using soup cans and string, and you could play telephone. So as a kid. So that's why he's doing that here. So this is considered non-traditional. He is painting on a non-traditional surface. This is a student example, Nate Kammerer, and he was using actual beans. I hate that this picture is pixelated, but he used a lot of different types of beans. It really just looks like 3 in order to create his artwork of Bush's original baked beans. This actually was pretty large. I would say it was half the size of our display board that you're watching this on. And yeah, it was really cool in person. And this is also a very inexpensive material too. You could buy dried beans pretty cheap. So anyway, you can see where he's working on it here and where he was coming up with his layout too. Another inexpensive medium here are, or in this case, toilet paper or paper towel rolls, and they're creating little sculptures and scenes with each one. This person decided to use keys on a keyboard to create this profile here of a person. And I love how they were able to find a range of value here. So obviously we have the black keyboards, we have the white keyboard or keys, and then we have variations of gray here that really just capture the value of this person. I'm going to skip this video, but it's Alexa Mead. I would totally look her up. She paints on actual people, and she makes them appear as if they're painting. So again, using traditional materials such as paint, but she's painting on a person. So I would consider that non-traditional. This is a person who's known as Lipstick Lex, and she is using a non-traditional material such as lipstick, but she's also using it in a non-traditional way as well. So she ends up making a lot of portraits by using lipsticks and applying it by kissing it, and it's really beautiful. Now this is made up of chewed bubble gum, and that's also one that is inexpensive, but I could see where bubblegum could kind of rack up in price here. But anyway, very cool. Here's another one where they had dirtied up a car using, they say artificial dirt. I would say this is probably just cornstarch or flour. And then they drew a whole scene all around the car. So here on the side of the car, we have all of these figures. I love that they even included a dog. And then I love the dogs playing poker here in the back hatch. These are two separate vehicles, too. Then we have a tape cassette here. And yeah, again, just using a non-traditional material. This person used discarded books. I had a student do something similar to this this past semester, and it was awesome. I wish I had it with me. She took it home, but yeah, this is a great material to use. We have some colored pencils. Now this is a traditional material, colored pencils are, but they're used in a non-traditional way. They're not used to draw here. They are used as a sculpture. And I have another example of this as well in this slideshow. Here using watch parts. This one's really cool, super high tech. This is definitely not my realm of expertise, but very cool. I love this one as well. This is a traditional material, such as paper. If you can tell, these are just rolled pieces of paper just on their sides here. But the paper is used in a non-traditional way. So this is a non-traditional artwork. And then sculptures using other materials. These kind of look like not paper clips, clothespins, and then rubber bands here. And then makeup. We have Mariah Carey here. And then I'm just going to keep going with more examples. These look like these slippers were cross-stitched. Now, cross-stitching is somewhat of a, I would say, a traditional material, but creating portraits out of them and also creating them into slippers would definitely be considered non-traditional. Also, they look very creepy from the sides, but straight on, they're really cool. And yeah. Same idea with the other colored pencil sculpture, using a traditional material, but in a non-traditional way. Same thing with this one, where they are using beads, and I don't know if you can tell, but these beads are hanging vertically. Looks on like a piece of, kind of like a very thin piece of wire. But anyway, they have added the beads to create a portrait here, and it's just so beautiful. I would definitely want to try this one day. Clothes, just arranging clothes and other fabrics to create, in this case, a portrait. A deck of cards to create a sculpture. Wires and cables. And then this one's probably one of my favorites. Using stuffed animals to create a silhouette of a figure holding, in this case I'm thinking a stuffed animal, but I guess they could reenact it as like a real dog or goat. I'm not really sure what that is. But anyway, this figure is pretty amazing. So again, using non-traditional materials here. Now, for your project, you have 3 options. You could either A, or in this case 1, non-traditional art surface. So you could use any non-traditional art surface. So for instance, my painting professor who painted on soup cans, that soup can is a non-traditional surface. So that's your first option. Your second option would be to use a non-traditional material, just like the stuffed animals I showed you to create that silhouette. A non-traditional material is used there. And then lastly, you could use a traditional art material, but in a non-traditional way. So going back to those colored pencils here, this is a traditional material, but you don't normally sculpt with it. So as far as your options go, I would look back in this slide if you're like very confused on which route you should take. Go back here and be like, which one do I want to do? Do I want to do a non-traditional art surface? Do I want to do a non-traditional material? Or would I want to use a traditional material, but in a non-traditional way? Now, for this project in general, you are going to have to source your own materials. So I would be thinking about, what do I have that is non-traditional that I could paint on? Or what do I have an abundance of that I could sculpt with? So if you are like that person with a gigantic amount of colored pencils, or this year I had a student use those like clear rocks that you would find in like flower vases, and she sculpted an eye out of it, and it was pretty cool. So just think about things that would be accessible to you as far as non-traditional materials go. Or you can think about different methods of art making, and how could you use a traditional art material that we have in this classroom, but in a non-traditional way. So an example I guess I could come up with that would be if you wanted to use watercolor paint and you wanted to apply it using a straw or something, and you were like blowing bubbles and other things and creating an artwork in that way. Now, you're creating a non-traditional artwork, but you have a theme with this project. So you can't just go and create anything you want without a meaning, because your theme is identity. And I'm not just talking about what you identify as. I'm going to clarify here in just a second, but I'm really wanting you to kind of do a deep dive within yourself and how you perceive yourself or how others view you. So I'm just going to read the next few slides and what I have written there. So identity, the distinguishing character or personality of an individual. Identity encompasses the memories, experiences, relationships, and values that create one's sense of self. So with that being said, not only your name, what you look like, and your information, but everything from your hobbies you have, your viewpoints, your beliefs, the type of music you listen to, your sense of fashion, your culture, and your personal history, the friends you hang out with, and anything else you could possibly come up with. It can be not only the way you see yourself, but also the way others perceive you. So that's really what I'm meaning here. And I really want you to kind of just do some self-reflection and, yeah, and think about how you can incorporate a material that's non-traditional. This is just me breaking down how you could look at this. So you could talk about or think about your personality traits or your values and beliefs, your preferences and interests, your self-concept, so how you view yourself. You could also think about your cultural background and social roles. Again, these slides are available in Google Classroom, so go back and look at these. Go back and check and see which one do you think would apply in this project. Now, I want to make sure I didn't skip a slide. Yep. Okay. For this project, you are creating an artwork using either one of these three methods. So I'm going to say them again. Either using a non-traditional art surface. So for instance, again, painting on those soup cans was using a non-traditional art surface. A non-traditional material, so using those stuffed animals to create the silhouette or the bubble gum to create the alligator. Those are all non-traditional materials. Or lastly, a traditional art material, but using it in a non-traditional way. So you're first going to create an artwork using non-traditional methods or materials, and you'll need to at least spend 15 hours of time spent creating. This means that you are giving this artwork your all. And notice how I say at least. I just want to remind you, this is an honors art course. So you should be taking your pieces home and working on them. So just want to keep that there. Your artwork must relate to your theme, which is identity. And the goal of this project is to begin thinking of your own unique style and process as an artist. So what you learn or take away from this project will help shape you in learning different methods and materials, but also you would have just spent a whole couple of weeks reflecting on yourself, and I feel like they'll only help you grow as an artist. And then make sure you're choosing a material that supports your idea. So if, for mine, if I was to do my identity and talk about like motherhood, since I'm about to approach that, my subject matter and my non-traditional material should coincide with that. So I guess if I really wanted to, I could create a whole non-traditional material out of like baby bottles and diapers and pacifiers and all like baby objects, because that would symbolize my identity, which is motherhood. So I want you to think about that. And then I just said, for example, if it's about food, can you create paint out of food? Okay. Hopefully you guys aren't asleep on me at this point, but this is what I'm grading over, or what you're going to be graded over. Using a non-traditional material or a non-traditional surface, and or using a non-traditional material in a non-traditional way, or a traditional material in a non-traditional way. At least 15 hours of time spent creating, and that your artwork must relate to the theme identity. Okay, this is what you're being graded over in your project. Now, today, you're actually going to start your preliminary sketches, and I'm about to show you some examples of those. But this is what you're going to do for the next 2 or 3 days. And I want you to kind of just form a game plan. Now, these preliminary sketches are going to be due September 10th. I believe today is September 8th, or it should be. So you have a couple days to finish these. So what I'm looking for are 2 fully rendered ideas, meaning you have completed sketches. They do not look rough. They are pretty thorough. And your teacher should be able to clearly look at it and know what your course of action is. The second thing with your preliminary sketches, your materials and tools need to be listed. That way you are showing that you know what you need, and how you're going to accomplish it. And then 3, your plan. So your project is due September 26th. I know you have a whole month of September to work on this, but how are you going to accomplish it? So come up with a schedule. What days are you going to accomplish what? So those are, that's your preliminary sketches. And I think that's the end of my slideshow. Yes, it is. Okay. I'm going to show you real quick some examples of preliminary sketches since you guys are starting those today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab this sketchbook real quick. And I believe I have Gracie's sketchbook. And this is her, let's see if I can skip to it. Yes. Okay. So these are her preliminary sketches. Sorry, I don't think I can make this any larger. I can't. I'll just make sure I bring this up to you. Now, I didn't give them as much time to work on their sketches, so she did not have to color or shade hers. You have to make these look complete, okay? But anyway, so for her first sketch, she made it half a page. I think I forgot to say that, but it is in the slide. And she is pretty much just going over what her final product is going to look like. And she's listing her materials here. She's saying confetti, and then she's listing other things like scissors, glue, paint, paintbrushes, thread, pattern tape, paint pens, paper, pencil, Sharpie, and beads. And then she is talking about her concept here. So this is her representation of fear, choosing fear, and then confetti mosaic with beads. And so she ended up telling me too her confetti was from her 16th birthday. So I thought that was really cool. She even listed out her schedule, so 15 hours. She says she's going to sketch for 1 to 2 hours. Background, 1 to 2 hours of laying down her paint, 2 to 4 of cutting. Anyway, she has her schedule. I don't think I need to read it all to you. But she's saying, like, for her person, she plans on spending 5 hours. And then reversible beads, painting and gluing and writing everything, 3 hours. So you can kind of guesstimate. However, I want to see that you're planning it out because 15 hours is a large amount of time. Same thing with this sketch. She does a good job making it a good size. She clearly explains the materials again using that confetti and beads technique. Now she ended up kind of merging these two ideas together, which was pretty cool. But anyway, again, she goes over her concept and then her schedule. So this is what I'm looking for. Again, with yours, I want yours to be shaded or colored. Just make sure they look complete. But just remember, I'm looking for your sketch and your plan and materials. So these will be due, I believe I had on there, September 10th. So this is what you're working on today. Okay. If you have any questions about anything that I've gone over, remember the slides are in Google Classroom. So if you need to go back through all the slides and kind of just refresh yourself on what this project is, make sure you do so. All right, guys, you are about to start a very exciting project, and I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with. All right, have a fun time creating some art. Bye, guys.